You and I are going to make a lot of money.
It's Ferrall, coast to coast.
It's Ferrall, coast to coast, in the biggest way possible, right here on SportsGrid and SportsGrid Radio. Great to have you with us on a Tuesday. Carver High in for Scotty. Joe Lisi will be with me, usually with me on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, of course, on C2C. He will join me in hour number 2. We have a lot to do before then and the entire day today, that is for sure. We start, as always, with the birthday roll call. Let's go here. Jaden Ivey's 22. He's been lighting it up for the Pistons. Capo Caco, 23 for the Rangers. Luke Voigt, 33. Nathan Evaldi, 34. Al Montoya, 39. David Padgett, 39. Michael Turner, 42. Luke Rittenauer, 43. Drew Henson, Yankees, Michigan, Cowboys, 44. Nicholas Backstrom, 46. Randy Moss, 47. Willie Smith, 51. Charlie Garner, 52. Matt Sundin, 53. Reuben Brown, 54. Kevin Stocker, 54. What a list today. Gary Patterson, 64. Gord Hampson, 65. And Coach K, Mike Krzyzewski, 77. Double sevens for Coach K today, enjoying retirement, as we know, former Duke legend basketball coach. There you go. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. So very busy today on a Tuesday as we start that, like me and Scotty were talking about yesterday. The transition, NFL over, Super Bowl on Sunday. We start to really dive in to the winter sports that, of course, bleed right into the spring when we get the hockey and the hoops. We've got March Madness around. And believe it or not, I saw clips today of pitchers and catchers reporting to spring training. I did see some baseballs getting thrown around down in Florida. So that is also here for us. We will discuss all of it today as we get you ready to rock here on a Tuesday. We will start with George Kurtz today early in the show. First, though, let's welcome in the radio affiliates for El Coast to Coast on a Tuesday. Carver High in for Scotty, SportsGrid Radio, Sirius XM, Channel 159 Sports Byline, the mightier 1090 ESPN Radio in sunny Southern California. Great to have everybody with us here today. So we'll have Kurtz in the first hour with us. Like we said, Joe will join us in hour number 2 today and for the duration. But we're going to do a couple things with George early on. I'm going to get his thoughts on the Super Bowl. But like I said, I saw pitchers and catchers today. Coincidentally, I saw award props get put up for Major League Baseball in the last 24 hours as well. AL and NL MVP, AL and NL Cy Young. So why not? Perfect way to usher in the baseball season with Gentleman George later. And we've got a big hockey board tonight, which we will also discuss with George. 11 games on the ice, including a couple of good ones. Indeed, Tampa is in Boston tonight. The Kraken trying to break a losing streak at the horse track against the Islanders. Carolina is in Dallas. So some very good hockey games we will have for you. Also in hour number 1, Mike DeCourcy is with us every week on C2C from the Sporting News. He will join us too. We'll do some stuff with him, including look at some of tonight's college basketball games. Hour 2, some NFL. Hey, even though it ended on Sunday, the NFL never really stops. At least the news of the NFL never really stops. We've got some stuff. Reed and Mahomes yesterday, 24 hours later, speaking to the media, getting themselves ready for the big parade that will be in Kansas City tomorrow. What a way to spend Valentine's Day in Kansas City. A little parade to celebrate another Chiefs Super Bowl championship, Super Bowl 58. The most watched television program ever. Period. And stop. The most watched television program ever on Sunday night with the overtime game. You could thank. You think a lot of that? I don't know. Mom said thanks, Taylor. I don't know. I think that there could be a combination of things, but yes, Taylor Swift, I'm sure the Swifties did bring some of that number out there, that's for sure. We've got odds. We did a little bit of this yesterday. I want to get into it, Joe. Odds for next year's Super Bowl, odds for next year's MVP, and the draft. Number 1 and number 2 overall pick. Is it Caleb Williams? No doubt. I mean, the odds board kind of says it is, but we're about to get into that season. Smoke screen season. The combine, the rumors. Well, I've already seen a few of the draft nicks already in the last 24 hours. Well, not really sure that his, all his tape is worthy of being the number one pick. He might be more like the second or third best quarterback in this draft. It's already, the wheels are starting to turn to get you revved up for the draft coming in late April. Other NFL news, Eagles' Hassan Reddick says he did not request a trade. That's been flying all over the Philadelphia area this morning. Some cryptic social media posts from Niners wide receiver Brandon Ayuk that sounds like either he doesn't want to be in San Francisco next year or doesn't think he's going to be there. Even his wife or girlfriend, whoever, put out a video. I think it was his wife put out the video that she didn't think they're going to be there anymore. So some strange stuff with Ayuk. They did already pick up the 5th-year option on him, so he is under contract for the Niners next year. Must be talking about long-term deals. And a little bit on the Steelers today, that Tomlin story that he loves Justin Fields all over the place. We've got the Lion's Share in hour number 2 with Coach James Young. We also we'll go through all the NBA with him, get his plays for tonight as well. We'll see if he's got any college looks too, because it's a big night of college basketball. Davis Maddock is with us in the middle hour as well. Fantasy Sports Today. We will get his plays for tonight. Final hour. We'll roll through the NBA. Some good games last night, bunch tonight as well. How about the foul that they called on Brunson at the end of that Knick game last night? What was that? Tie game. They call the foul on Brunson with basically in the final second. Rockets make the free throws. They beat the Knicks 105-103. And then, of course, the crew chief afterwards said, we messed that up. Oh, that's real nice. Glad you messed that up. They're going to go back and restart the game from overtime? What an awful job. The refs, it just never ceases to amaze you how the refs ruin these games. So we'll talk a little bit about that. Warriors continue to stay hot. They beat the Jazz. Clay had a big night. Curry had 4 threes in the fourth. He went off. Draymond had a little something to say, too. Wembanyama with the triple-double last night. Not exactly the conventional route, though. He threw 10 blocks in there for the triple-double. 10 blocks. Sick. As the Spurs beat the Raptors 122-99. We've got a little bit odds to win the West, odds to win the East, best and worst against the spread in the NBA as well. Tonight's games, including Oklahoma City in Orlando. They're retiring Shaq's number tonight, first number the Magic have ever retired. It's a heavy slate of college basketball tonight. Several huge games on the docket. We'll talk a little bit about Texas Tech beating up Kansas last night as well. Oklahoma at Baylor tonight. The Big 12 is the best conference in basketball. It just is. Every night, the games in the Big 12 are far and away the best out of anyone throughout the entire country. So we'll do that. We've even got some good late-night Mountain West tonight as well with Colorado State and San Diego State, New Mexico and Nevada, as those teams all come down the stretch in that conference to try to get things going. So we got a big Tuesday for El Coast to Coast with you. Carver High in for Scotty. Joe will be with me later. We've got George Kurtz in hour number 1, Mike DeCourcy, Coach Young, and Davis Maddock will stop by as well. A Tuesday C2C on SportsGrid Radio. We get it going right after this.
Jokic is the best player in the NBA until proven otherwise. Like, you have that guy on your team, you win 50 games, it's really that simple.
There is voter fatigue, and I think that is the only thing you have to be careful about when you deal with the NBA is there voter fatigue in regards to who should win the MVP? When you look at the odds, and obviously you get, no Halliburton.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Over $200 million in the state of New York in sports betting, half of that going to the state. All thumbs up, I guess, across the board here, right?
Yeah, New York just continues to be the standard bearer for the industry. People are betting a ton on NFL. We've still got March Madness coming up. This is really the prime time for the U.S. sports calendar with the NFL playoffs, Super Bowl, and then, college basketball, NBA, NHL in full swing.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
What are you thinking overall, kind of first reaction here, Patrick Mahomes, his legacy.
I don't know how far his drive is. Is his drive to become known as the greatest quarterback of all time? I don't think matching Super Bowls will really do that. I think there'll always be, the Brady people will always say, listen, it's a different era.
Football Full Circle, only on SportsGrid.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid, your 24/7 sports wagering network.
Well, look at the Heisman Trophy.
The early line.
And what it all means. Individual success.
You should have tried to get something for Anthony Rendon. Not bought at the deadline.
Newswire.
We're getting a lot of news, trades, cuts, and some movement in terms of starting quarterbacks,
Ferrall,
backup quarterbacks.
coast to coast.
I want to watch great players make buckets and win games.
Game time decisions.
I have no idea what the heck the Blazers are doing and what they
in-game live,
Just
prime time.
Yard for a grand slam.
The bottom of the fourth inning in a 12-2 baseball game. We got football scores going on at Wrigley right now.
Sports Rage
that was
late
good
night.
We waited for 1.5. We got paid.
We did.
Did like the 2.5. Jumped on.
There's no taking weeks off in golf betting ever. These are the best weeks to bet.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
BetMGM is for everyone that loves sports betting. Everyone. But Tom Brady.
Wait, what?
You've won too much, Tommy. Let others play.
So I'm in if I'm not Tom Brady?
You're in. Now dog me.
What if I used to babysit Tom Brady and he was a little troublemaker?
No one likes to snitch. But you're in.
What if I'm the Tom Brady of spreadsheets?
You're in.
What if I'm Tim Birdie, 7-time pool champion?
The dress-up's not helping, Tom. It's still a no.
Hey, Tom. Hi, Wayne Gretzky.
I thought it would be bigger.
Download BetMGM. Except you, Tom. You've won enough.
And we are back for El Coast to Coast here on a Tuesday. Carver High in for Scotty. BetMGM has you ready to go here. That's right. Winter sports are in full effect, and BetMGM is giving away free money. What? Place your first BetMGM sportsbook wager through the mobile app for at least $5. You'll receive $150 instantly in additional winnings, regardless of your wager's outcome. What do you got to do? You got to download the BetMGM Sportsbook app on iOS or Android, or visit BetMGM.com. Sign up and deposit at least $5 into your newly created account. Remember, new customers. Place a wager of at least $5 at standard odds price. Once you have placed a bet, you'll receive $150 in bonus bets. That's it, regardless of the outcome of your wager. You got to use bonus code SG150, SG150. And BetMGM will have you set up with some free money. We love that. Love it. Especially, it don't matter how you did on Sunday in the big game. Having free money after it will get you going, that's for sure. All right. Of course, Lisi will be with me later on. We got the Corsi later on. We got a lot to do today on a Tuesday, but we will start today with our good buddy, gentleman George Kurtz, here to kick things off. And George, I actually thought it was a pretty good day that we get you in at the beginning because, and first I'm going to get your thoughts on the Super Bowl, but when I saw the pitchers and catchers start to throw the ball around this morning, it was like, all right, we're here, we're done with football, baseball's ready to go. We've obviously got hockey and basketball too. But first, George, before we get there, good to see you as always, my man. Your thoughts from Sunday night, because I have not spoken to you. Did you look at it more as, once again, just another magical performance from Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, and Andy Reid, or were you more Shanahan and the Niners blew the game? What side are you on?
I don't think the 49ers blew the game, okay? I would not have elected to receive the kickoff in overtime. And his excuse that he wanted the ball third, Okay, interesting. I don't think I buy that. What if you don't score? If you don't score first, then it doesn't matter here. And then you find out Mahomes sort of let the cat out of the bag in Disney World land, wherever he is in Florida, that they were going to go for 2 anyway. So there would have been no third, right? They were going to go for the win there to avoid the scenario that Shanahan had brought up here. I don't know. The fact that the players didn't know the rules, it's a bad look. It's just a bad look for the 49ers. That being said, I do think this is another case. This is why last week I said this when we were on together. I'm not betting against Mahomes. All right, I bet it against Buffalo. Right, I was on Buffalo. I was on Baltimore. I'm done betting against Mahomes. He finds ways to. He's the greatest quarterback that we have in the game today. Maybe the greatest of all time. When all is said and done, he finds ways to win.
He does. He always does, Georgia. And it was a masterful performance by Mahomes. The bottom line in that game was Mahomes and Kelsey made the biggest plays in the fourth quarter and overtime. That's it. I mean, they made the huge plays that allowed Kansas City to win that game. And the stuff about the players not knowing the rules, I got to tell you, George, like me and Joe were talking about this last night too. There's 2,000 players or whatever it is when you get to practice squads and all that sort of stuff. I bet, George, that less than 20% actually know the rules. I think only the guys who are really tapped in, who are, love the game, they're watching when they're not playing, they know all the little transactions and rules and everything that happens in the league. I think the majority of guys probably have no idea what's going on. And I think the reason why everybody says the Chiefs knew is because Chris Jones said, we talked about it. Hardman had no idea. He admitted it. I think that's getting a little overblown on that side of things that the Niner players didn't know.
Did it throw you off for a little bit when Hardman caught the winning catch? He didn't go bananas. I'm like, the game's over, right? Because he wasn't flipping out. I'm like, no, the game is over.
Jump on him.
Right. He had to wait a little second there. So I agree with your numbers, by the way. Hey, remember back in the day, Donovan McNabb didn't know the old overtime rules, which hadn't changed in decades. They were the same since we were kids. All right, he didn't know the rules. So, yeah, your number's probably right. Play, it's a job to them. They don't know every nuance of their job. And this is a new rule.
It's their job.
This is a new rule.
The first game where it ever happened, it's their job. This is not something that they're showing up every week, learning playbooks, learning this. They're not, ingrained in their head that each team gets a full possession in overtime now in the playoffs. They got no idea. Either way, George, it's over now. And we move on because spring is on its way. And I did see the first teams having the pitchers and catchers out this morning. I think the Mets were one of them. There was a few others that have pitchers and catchers starting to throw the ball around. And the weird part about it is, George, before I get to some of the odds that they put up as they opened up all the baseball markets basically in the last 36 hours since the Super Bowl ended, is that you still have, even with these camps opening up, you still have tons of guys that are unsigned. And I feel like I'm not bad for baseball or bad for the game, but I feel like these are all things that should be wrapped up by at the minimum January 1st. You should know where everybody's going to be. Having this thing bleed into spring training, George, is rather silly.
Listen, you'll get, once again, no argument for me. It is kind of silly here. You have spring training opening this week. The Yankees play their first spring training game next Saturday. All right, that's 11 days from now. The fact that the Cy Young, we're not talking scrubs here. The Cy Young Award winner in the National League is still unsigned. Cody Bellinger, Jordan Montgomery, Boris clients, not shocking here. They want every last time he can possibly get them. I think what's going to happen is eventually you're going to have new rules that if you're not signed by January 15th, you can't play April. You can't play May or something like that to stop this. Because this has been this is the worst we've seen. But it's been a trend now probably for the last 5-7 years where these agents are taking it down as far as they can go here to try to get every last dime. And it's Boris who's leading the charge here. I think they'll try and do some kind of rule to make it sign earlier. If it's not January 1st, January 15th, certainly by February 1st. I mean, come on, it's a joke that we have top players unsigned and spring training is opening.
It makes absolutely no sense to me, George. It really does. And like you said, I even forgot about Snell. That's how bad a job. You brought up Snell. I was thinking Bellinger and a few of these other guys. I forgot Snell's not even signed yet as everybody starts to show up here, which is nuts. All right, I have some futures for you in baseball because they've opened a few of these markets. Let's start with one of these, and we'll do the other three after the break. AL MVP. I mean, I get there's always the Yankees are always going to get pushed, but you think you'd see two Yankees right at the top of the board, George? When I open this up, there it is, Judge, 550, Soto 6-1, right out of the gates. Jordan, Seager, Julio Rodriguez, a lot of the usual suspects. American League, obviously a lot different this year, George, because you don't have Ohtani sitting there at plus 150 before they even play a game.
That's the good news for the American League that wants to win the award, right? Because Ohtani's not. I mean, he wasn't going to pitch this year anyway, just as a hitter, so it's much more fair this year, even in the National League where he is. Judge, I mean, would it shock anybody if he hits 50-plus home runs again? I wouldn't be shocked if he approaches 62 again. I mean, he's got Soto protecting him now. You got to choose your poison here. You want to pitch the Judge or Soto? I assume they're going to bat 2-3 in the lineup. You know, and they'll go at it like that. So good news. The question for Judge is, can he stay healthy? You know, they're going to – right now, he's your starting center fielder. I mean, he can play center field, but that's not good. The Yankees don't have another starting center fielder on the roster. Sure, Trent Grisham is there, but he's not going to start. There's no place for him. You got Verdugo, you got Soto, you got Stanton. What are you doing with Grisham here? He's going to be a late inning defensive replacement here, not to mention when the Martian returns later this year. So I like Judge a lot. Gotta love Soto. You know he wants to have a big year in his free agent year. I think he's going to hit 40-plus home runs. He can win it as well.
I think the problem with Judge, obviously, George, is that the only year he actually played the whole year was the year he broke the record. You know, he never plays the entire season, which is also a deal with him. All right, Ferrall Coast to Coast here on a Tuesday. Carver High is for Scotty. We got Kurt Saglitz. We're back on the grid right after this.
Scoring 19.7 points per game, 13.1 rebounds, and 8.2 assists. How can a center that is top 50 in scoring, first in rebounding, 7th in assists, and 8th in field goal percentage not make the All-Star team? That is such a huge snub for Domantas Sabonis.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
Over $200 million in the state of New York in sports betting, half of that going to the state. All thumbs up, I guess, across the board here, right?
Yeah, New York just continues to be the standard bearer for the industry. People are betting a ton on NFL. We've still got March Madness coming up. This is really the prime time for the U.S. sports calendar with the NFL playoffs, Super Bowl, and then, college basketball, NBA, NHL in full swing.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
What are you thinking overall, kind of first reaction here? Patrick Mahomes, his legacy.
I don't know how far his drive is. Is his drive to become known as the greatest quarterback of all time? I don't think matching Super Bowls will really do that. I think there'll always be, the Brady people will always say, listen, it's a different era.
Football Full Circle, only on SportsGrid.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid, your 24/7 sports wagering network.
Well, look at the Heisman Trophy.
The early line.
And what it all means. Individual success.
You should have tried to get something for Anthony Rendon. Not bought at the deadline.
Newswire.
We're getting a lot of news, trades, cuts, and some movement in terms of starting quarterbacks,
Ferrall
backup quarterbacks.
Coast to Coast.
I want to watch great players make buckets and win games.
Game time decisions.
I have no idea what the heck the Blazers are doing and what they
in-game live,
just
prime time.
Yard for a grand slam.
The bottom of the fourth inning in a 12-2 baseball game. We got football scores going on at Wrigley right now.
Sports Rage
That was
late
good betting.
night.
We waited for 1.5. We got paid.
We did.
Didn't like the 2.5. Jumped on
There's
it.
no taking weeks off in golf betting, ever. These are the best weeks to bet.
It's smarter to be on sports.
Ferrall has taken over. Let's go. It's Ferrall. Coast to coast. Steaks, chicks, stacks. You and I are going to make a lot of money. It's Ferrall. Coast to coast.
And we are back from Coast to Coast here on a Tuesday. Carver High in for Scotty, SportsGrid Radio. Great to have everybody with us. George Kurtz is hanging with us as well. All right, George, just quickly, because we were looking at those American League numbers, I wanted to go and check. I saw some individual home run numbers. Judge 44.5 and Soto 35.5 is what the early numbers are for them in terms of just, their over-under for the season for homers. And we were saying during the break, like it all comes down to the same thing. How many games is Judge playing? Because if he plays 130 games, he probably smokes 44.5. He goes way past 44.5 if he plays that many games.
Agreed, doesn't I think for every 10 games above the 130, he can hit 5 home runs. If he plays 145, I think it's 50-55. He plays anywhere near 150 plus. He's approaching the record again. The man he's a freak, right? That's what the Yankee Stadium. He'll hit the ball to right field. He's not trying to hit every ball 500 feet. He doesn't mind the 315-foot home run down the right field line. So he'll take that as well, yeah. And with Soto backing him up, you got, like I said, it's no pitch around Judge. Let's see what Stanton can do. Let's see what Rizzo can do. No, you got a legitimate threat there in Soto as well.
Here's the National League board, George, here as they've opened this up. Ronald Acuna Jr., of course, plus 525. Mookie Betts plus 650 on there. Shohei Ohtani, Dodgers now, 9-1. Tatis 10-1. Freeman, Harper, Olsen, Corbin Carroll, Trey Turner. The interesting thing, George, is now we've seen Ohtani the last few years. I was saying to you before as a joke, like plus 150 before the season even starts in the American League. 9 this year, though, because you don't have the dual threat element of Ohtani. He's not going to pitch this year. He's only going to be hitting. He says he's going to be ready to hit opening day. We don't, I saw him taking some swings yesterday, whatever he was doing. But see, this is where, for me, George, the Ohtani stuff is going to be interesting this year. He's not, without that pitching element, he's not the superhuman that everybody's made him the last few years as the automatic for the MVP. He has to put up the huge numbers just on one side. He can't be the 4th best hitter and the 5th best pitcher, combine them, and he's the MVP. He's got to keep his numbers up there with the Betts and with the Acuñas.
Now, I agree with everything you just said there. All right, everything you just said is 100% true, right? He's not going to have the bonus of the pitching. And hitting-wise, well, he's a very good hitter, but he's probably not the best hitter. All right, but let me bring this up to you. He also doesn't have to worry about pitching, right? He can focus purely on hitting now, right? I mean, he's got his rehab, and what he exactly has to do there, they're always being very hush-hush about that, right? They haven't really told us what he's going to have to do, so maybe that takes effect. But the only thing he's worried about is his hitting here. Now, yes, he's changing leagues, but that's not as big a thing as it used to be, all right? Because when you hit the league play, you play all these teams anyway. Matter of fact, nowadays, you literally play every team every year now with the new schedule that came about last year. Do I think he's going to win it this year? I think he'll be there. I think he will be there. Do I think he's the best hitter in the National League? No, I'm not sure. So sure he's the best hitter on his team. All right, that might be Mookie Betts. That might be Freddie Freeman. Listen, the Dodgers are a joke. All right, they're just a complete. Their next important game is October. All right, let's see what they can do in the playoffs. I know they win 100 games during normal times. They'll win 110, 112 this year.
The funny thing is, though, George, what you're saying, though, let's say he gets out and he hits 11 homers in April. Let's throw something out there. Like, on that outside of it, 9-1 right now with how much juice he gets and how much he gets pumped up. Like, that might be 250 by May 1st if he has some hot air. So as much as he's losing that one element, the price is probably worth a stab, because if he goes scorched earth and he hits 56 homers, it goes, he's got enough juice that he'll probably win it. And you'll never see a price like that again the rest of the year. AL Cy Young, Cole won it last year. He's the favorite again this year at 5-1. But, I mean, some of these names after, George, like, I know these are good pitchers, but, like, it just doesn't feel like the American League has big-time aces, Kevin Gossman, Valdez. I mean, Corbin Burns comes over now to Baltimore. Lopez, Castillo, Kirby's Dreamland. Tariq Skubal from the Tigers is 18-1 right after him. Cole Reagan's 20-1. Not a lot of aces in the AL, George.
Right, they just got one in Burns too, right? That was traded over here. It's when I first saw that board, it was like, this is the best the American League can do after Cole.
Yeah.
Wow. You don't realize that the pitching in the American League is not very good up top there. Gossman, he's the one guy I would look at, but, that ballpark in Toronto, his ERA is going to suffer a little bit because it's a little league field there. So that might worry me somewhat. Listen, I do think it's Cole or bust. I know we sound like Yankee fans here. Judge is going to hit 60. Cole is going to win the Cy Young. But I don't think the Yankees win the American League East. How about that?
We might sound like that right now, and then you get to me when I talk about the team itself, and I'm not a believer. Until I see it, I won't believe it. So as much as we could sit here, and they're the favorites for every award because they're the Yankees, and it's Judge, and it's Cole, and all that. But you know it, George. When you get to October, they got a lot to prove, and that's if they get there at all to begin with. As much as they're the favorites for the AL East and whatnot. NL side, you get some bigger names: Strider, Wheeler, Logan Webb, Yamamoto, of course, who's over this year to the Dodgers from Japan. Max Fried, Zach Gallen, who really had that award, George, from April to August last year. Gallen was that good for Arizona before falling off. Senga, the Steel Mill. Tyler Glasnow's 20-1. He's with the Dodgers now. Remember that. So a lot more competition for the NL side as the season starts.
Yeah, Glasnow won't make enough starts. We know that, right? He's hurt every great when he's plays.
Made of glass.
Starts. And I'm very happy. I'm very glad he's been with the Dodgers and out of Tampa Bay. Don't need the Yankees to face him 4 or 5 times a year. I'm a big Zach Wheeler guy. I'm going to take that Zach Wheeler number here. I think he's right there with Strider. I do. I think he's if he's not as good, he's really close. I think Philadelphia's a good team here, so I like Zach Wheeler a lot for the number. Strider's great too, by the way. The mustache has to go, but he's great as well. I think with Yamamoto, it's going to take a little bit of an adjustment. We have a bigger base, but we don't have the tackiness on it, which is kind of idiotic in my mind. But he'll be great, but not Cy Young great year one. So I said I'm on Zach Wheeler. I think I'm going to take him and win the award this year.
And remember, as you mentioned before, the guy who won the NL Cy Young last year isn't signed yet. He could be on the AL board. He could be on the NL board, depending upon when he actually signs. So keep that in mind. And if it's the AL, George, he probably goes to second, third. You put him, depending on where he signs, probably ahead of Gossman, right behind Cole. I would think if he signs with an American League team, he's going to be in that top 3.
I think we assume it's going to be with a good team, right? Because the one kind of money he wants to make, I don't see a lesser team signing him. So I think you're right. I think it'd be no worse than third with Blake Snell. Still kind of hope the Yankees would pony up there because their rotation is, man, that's held together with Scotch tape and Elmer's glue.
Can't wait to see Carlos Rodon this year out in the Bronx with the Yankees. Hockey tonight, George. Let's spend the last couple minutes with this because there's a lot of games tonight. Let me know if you like anything here. Let me give you the first board that I got. Tampa's in Boston tonight. The Kings are in Buffalo against the Sabres. St. Louis in Toronto. St. Louis, they scored a touchdown on Sunday against the Canadiens. And then you have Anaheim into Montreal as well tonight. Anything on the first board for you tonight, George?
I'll take Montreal. That's the first one that comes to mind here. I'll take them over the Ducks there. A couple of the other, we're still waiting as of 3:30 Eastern. At least I haven't seen it if it came up before the show. Morgan Riley. I think that's a monster loss when he gets that suspension. That's a monster loss for that team. So that automatically makes me want to take the over, by the way. I think goals are coming in that game. I don't care who the goaltenders are for either team there. I'm not laying 200, 2-1 with Toronto. I'm probably more going with St. Louis here. To not take the truck, which I usually do. I'm on the Kings. Sure, they're better than Buffalo, but I don't trust them enough. I'll be on Boston. Tampa Bay, they're old and slow, man. Every now and then they play good games, but I don't think they'll play well in Boston tonight. I'll take that. I'm hoping it goes down a little bit from 160. That's a high price to pay here. I like the Bruins tonight over Tampa.
I don't mind the puck line at plus 150 either, George, in that game. I don't mind the Bruins minus 1.5. At home against Tampa. Columbus is in Ottawa. Colorado still out east. They're in Washington against the Caps tonight. The Kraken, who have lost, I believe, George, it's 4 in a row here, on this trip are at the horse track against the Islanders. They lost last night at the Rock against the Devils. The Devils, meanwhile, are in Nashville against the Predators tonight.
A couple of teams playing back-to-back, right? Seattle and the Devils playing back-to-back here. So I'll be on the Islanders tonight, which is not something I do quite often here. I think we're also hearing that Grubauer is going to make his first start in a couple of months tonight. Little surprise there, not Joey Depord. So that's another reason why I like the Islanders tonight. Another guy making a start tonight for the first time in a couple of months will be Forsberg of Ottawa. Korpisalo is not starting. Forsberg activated off the IL. He'll start against Columbus. I'm not laying 185 at the Senators. Can't do that. Maybe the goal line. I think they'll score some goals, like the over in that game. Probably my favorite play in Ottawa, Columbus there. Probably not touching Colorado, Washington. Avalanche aren't playing as well lately, and I don't have the stones to take plus 140 with the Caps here. I'll probably take Nashville. It's the back-to-back thing. I don't like our teams playing back-to-back. They was big that night. Give me the Preds.
30 seconds left, George. Only 3 other games, and actually the game of the night. Carolina and Dallas tonight. Really good game. Stars minus $1.15, and then you've got the Red Wings in Edmonton as well tonight.
Should the Red Wings really be minus 250 dogs here? I don't think so against Edmonton. They're a better team than that there. That being said, I don't trust it enough. Vancouver will be in a parlay with somebody. They'll beat the Blackhawks here. Not worried about it. Probably take their over team total as well. Carolina-Dallas is a nice watch game. Not going to bet it. Just going to enjoy the game. It is the best game of the night by far.
Vancouver, Boston, Islanders, George. The 3-teamer tonight on the money line with the parlay. We'll put those 3 together. We'll see what we get. George, tremendous job, as always. We will see you again soon. Gentlemen, George Kurtz here on Coast to Coast. We're back. SportsGrid Radio. Mike DeCourcy, the sporting news next.
$200 million in the state of New York in sports betting, half of that going to the state. All thumbs up, I guess, across the board here, right?
Yeah, New York just continues to be the standard bearer for the industry. People are betting a ton on NFL. We've still got March Madness coming up. This is really the prime time for the U.S. sports calendar with the NFL playoffs, Super Bowl, and then college basketball, NBA, NHL in full swing.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Nikola Jokic is the best player in the NBA until proven otherwise. Like, you have that guy on your team, you win 50 games, it's really that simple.
There is voter fatigue, and I think that is the only thing you have to be careful about when you deal with the NBA is there voter fatigue in regards to who should win the MVP? When you look at the odds, and obviously you get, no Halliburton.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Scoring 19.7 points per game, 13.1 rebounds, and 8.2 assists. How can a center that is top 50 in scoring, first in rebounding, 7th in assists, and 8th in field goal percentage not make the All-Star team? That is such a huge snub for Domantas Sabonis.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
That's been to a sporting event. The atmosphere before a game. I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the game starts so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
And we are back for El Coast to Coast here on a Tuesday. Carver High in for Scotty, SportsGrid Radio. Great to have everybody with us. Every week we have Mike DeCourcy from the Sporting News with us to go over everything that's happening in the world of sports and, of course, college basketball, which is really going to heat up now. Now that we have football out of the way, the focus will squarely be on March Madness coming up in a couple of weeks. Mike, good to see you as always, my man. Let's start with the Super Bowl, of course, because I love the first paragraph of the column that you wrote about Mahomes, in that there was a lot of people probably sitting there on Sunday watching that football game thinking, man, if Brock Purdy wins the Super Bowl, that's got to give me a lot of hope. Whether you're, the guys at the top who haven't won, the Lamars, the Josh Allens, the Goffs, the Baker Mayfields, Brock Purdy winning, that's going to give everybody a lot of gas that they could eventually do it one day. But, Mike, nothing's easy when number 15 is on the other side of the field.
He's just amazing, Mike. And one of the things that blows me away is there was a tweet that I reacted to on Sunday night. And so a lot of reaction to Mahomes, a lot of modern reaction to him, is that he couldn't have been great in prior eras. Now, I'm not going to say that there wouldn't have been coaches who would not have allowed him to be great. I know that's true. But if you played his football in any era, it would have been wildly successful. He is just astonishing. His ability to improvise, his ability to find open receivers in the most difficult circumstances, his decision-making. He's honestly the best quarterback there's ever been. He's not going to get that recognition until he has a broader career. He's only been a starter for 6 years. But look at the 6 years. He's been in the AFC Championship game every year. He's been in the Super Bowl in 4 of them. He's won 3 of them. There's never been a quarterback who's done that. Now, I'm hopeful that he stays healthy, even though it affects the Steelers. I'm hopeful he stays healthy for another decade and never has to deal with the injuries that could impact his ability to build a career with longevity. But even in the absence of that, there's never going to be well, I can't say there won't ever be another, but you look back and there has never been a quarterback that began his career in this fashion with this sort of achievement and doing it in such grand style.
Yeah, and it's weird, Mike, because obviously Brady's the guy that everybody wants to compare him to, right? Like, that's the bar. That's the standard. That's where you want to get to. And the strange thing about the Brady career, of course, was that he had the 3 very early, kind of like what Mahomes has done now here. And then there was a sizable gap, and then there was the rest of them all towards the end. I'm not sure there's going to be a sizable gap for this guy. Like, I don't think it's going to be 5 or 6 years before Mahomes is in the Super Bowl again. He's so good, and they do such a great job building around him, even in today's extremely difficult salary cap world, that they're still going to be there, and he's going to give them a chance to be there every single year.
There are variables there. One of them is Andy Reid. How long does he want to do it? How long does he keep his fastball? It's not easy to keep up that workload at age 65. We don't see a lot of NFL coaches that excel beyond that age, even to that age. So he could very well be an exception. But how much longer do you want to do it? You're 65 and you have more money than you could spend if you spent like $10,000 a day. You probably would be able to still, you'd never be able to outlive your money. He's got to decide what he wants in his future. There's, as I mentioned, injury to Pat potential. It's still a really dangerous sport, and even the innocuous plays can lead to game or season altering injuries. And so that's an issue as well. And then there's the players around him. One of the reasons he was able to win this is the secondary was phenomenal for the Chiefs in this run, and especially in this Super Bowl. Does it continue at that level, or do you have to make adjustments because of salary cap? There are different things. In a salary cap league, it's hard to keep your fastball always there. So it's possible, but I agree in the sense that with the nature of his talent, he's going to get them to some, along the course of his career, he's going to get them to some Super Bowls that they may not be good enough to make, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm. Look, people thought when they traded Tyreek Hill, this is where it's the downturn's going to start, not having an explosive receiver with like Tyreek Hill. They've won more since they traded Tyreek Hill. So it's amazing how this stuff works. And if you have the right people coaching and building the team, you'll be able to continue to stay at that high level and continue to win. All right, Mike, let's go to the hoops now. And I'll start with Caitlin Clark. You wrote the column on Friday or Saturday, whatever it was, about her. And you guys, everybody thought she was going to break this record late February, somewhere around. She's so good, Mike. It is absolutely amazing. And you wrote about some of the media and the coaches and the wow factor. And when you know she was it. She just continues to dazzle on a nightly basis when she's out there.
The basis for the theory behind the article was the first time I saw LeBron James, Mike, and I knew instantly. I wrote it that it was at the time it was the summer of 2001, I believe, and I wrote that it was like seeing Magic Johnson's head on Michael Jordan's body. That's what I saw, and I knew that it was. And I wrote that it was like when my sisters were old enough to see the Beatles. I was too young, but they saw the Beatles on Ed Sullivan and knew that the world had changed, and that was what LeBron was. So I wanted to know from the various people who've covered or been around Caitlin longest, when did they know that this was somebody that wasn't just going to be a really, an All-American, but an all-time great? And Lisa Bluter, the head coach at Iowa, told me that she could tell that Caitlin was different from the moment she saw her in junior high. She was playing at that point with a high school AAU team, and it was clear right away that she was more mature in terms of how she approached the game and how she acted on the floor and how serious she was about it than the high school girls that she was playing with. That's what Lisa told me, and you can see that now reflected in the way she approaches every game. She is serious. The way she approaches her off the court, let's call them responsibilities. They're not really responsibilities in all cases, but she takes them on as if they are. The responsibility to grow the game, to reach out to young people, whether it's girls or boys, and to be there as a idol or a role model. She, unlike the Charles Barkley commercial from 40 years ago, she embraces that with both hands. The idea that young people come to see her play, come to meet her, come to try to get a little glimpse of her, and that she wants to be able as possible to outreach to them. It's really impressive, Mike. It's pro athletes who have been in professional leagues for a long time struggle with this, and she's already got it mastered at 22.
Amazing stuff. And of course, I know I've asked you this a few times, like, she doesn't need to win the national championship to validate anything. She's going to go down as an all-time great no matter what. It's a team game. It's a very hard thing to do to win it all. But I know, Mike, it would be something special if we can get her back there to the end and maybe end this thing with a championship. I think they're third on the board right now at plus 850. Obviously, South Carolina is ridiculous, and LSU is going to be there as well. But I know I'm among many, Mike, hoping that she's back in that championship game and she has a chance to win the whole thing.
It would be awesome to see. There's no doubt about that. But it wouldn't be awesome if you're an LSU or South Carolina fan or UConn. I think you'd feel like, I'd rather my ladies be there. But I think that there was, when I wrote that article and it was published, there was some reaction to her relative to her greatness status. I don't want to call her GOAT because I'm not sure whether she is the GOAT, but she's in that conversation. And there was some pushback to that possibility because she hasn't won it. And I reject that because college basketball is different. Oscar Robertson played in multiple Final Fours at Cincinnati and did not win. And he was with great teams because the core of the teams that he departed when he was a senior, then went on and won the next two and made the title game the year after that. So it wasn't that he wasn't on great teams, but he still has a Player of the Year trophy named after him because that's how great he was. It didn't matter that he didn't win it all. Is Kareem the greatest college basketball player because he won it 3 times? Largely, yes, but I think he can still be in that conversation even without that. When I wrote my book on the top 100 players of college basketball all time, it was 20 years ago, but Oscar was number 3 at that point, and as I mentioned, didn't have a title. Pete Maravich was number 5 and didn't have a title. So it is possible to be at least in that pantheon. And to have played in the Final Four a year ago and to have beaten an undefeated team in the semis. And look, I'm not going to say LSU got lucky. They were a deserving champion. They had a player who averaged like 6.5 points a game come out and bust 6 threes and score 23, 24 points. And when that happens, it's your day. And it obviously didn't happen on behalf of Iowa. It happened on behalf of LSU.
Certainly did. We're a couple weeks away, Mike, from championship week, and then we'll get to Selection Sunday, etc. DeCourcy's does, and you still got Purdue 1, UConn 2. You do the brackets every week. They're both in your 1 seed line right now, of course. Do you look at them right now as it would have to take them falling on their face? I don't think either of them have to win their conference tournament. Do you think that they are solid 1 seeds at this point, and do you think those other 2 ones are still very much up for grabs here in these last few weeks?
I do. Mike, they would have to go completely opposite of who they've been to this point, UConn and Purdue. Purdue has 7 games left. They would have to lose more than they win. If they went 4-3 down the stretch and then just won their quarterfinal in the Big Ten tournament, they will be a 1. They might not be 1 overall, but that's not really a big issue for them or for UConn. Because, especially for them, because out of all the other significant teams, nobody really wants to be, not that Detroit's not a great place to be, but relative to their own geography, none of them really want to be in the Midwest region and playing in Detroit. They want to be in Dallas or LA or Boston, as is the case for UConn. So from that standpoint, I think that they're in really good shape. The same for UConn. UConn's a little bit more jeopardy because the Big East schedule for them is a little bit more difficult than the Big Ten schedule is at this point for Purdue. But they're both going to win enough that they're going to get 1s. And then the other 2, Houston, they're pretty solid position, but they have to play Kansas at home to end the season. Arizona is very perilous. Carolina, once it is playing for it. Yeah. Kansas could still get there. Even Marquette could still get there depending on how they perform against UConn.
Yeah, and I think, if a team wins that SEC and then wins the tournament, whether it's Tennessee, goes out, wins the regular season and wins the conference tournament, I think that they would probably have a little bit of case too. Mike, some great games tonight, including Indiana State back in the top 25 for the first time since Larry Bird. What a great story. We'll talk to you next week. Mike DeCourcy, the Sporting News.
$200 million in the state of New York in sports betting, half of that going to the state. All thumbs up, I guess, across the board here, right?
Yeah, New York just continues to be the standard bearer for the industry. People are betting a ton on NFL. We've still got March Madness coming up. This is really the prime time for the U.S. sports calendar with the NFL playoffs, Super Bowl, and then, college basketball, NBA, NHL in full swing.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Nikola Jokic is the best player in the NBA until proven otherwise. Like, you have that guy on your team, you win 50 games, it's really that simple.
There is voter fatigue, and I think that is the only thing you have to be careful about when you deal with the NBA is there voter fatigue in regards to who should win the MVP? When you look at the odds, and obviously you get, no Halliburton.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Scoring 19.7 points per game, 13.1 rebounds, and 8.2 assists. How can a center that is top 50 in scoring, first in rebounding, 7th in assists, and 8th in field goal percentage not make the All-Star team? That is such a huge snub for Domantas Sabonis.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
That's been to a sporting event. The atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
And we're back for El Coast to Coast here on a Tuesday. Carver High in for Scotty, SportsGrid Radio. Great to have everybody with us here today. I know everybody knows Joe's with me on Tuesdays and Wednesdays on C2C. Where's Joe been here for the first hour? I did finally locate Joe. He was getting all the snow off of his car down in the lot. It was taking him a little bit of extra time. He actually then started helping everybody in the complex. He just started shoveling everybody out after all the snow that we've got here today in the Northeast, taking care of business. So I'll give Joe the big welcome and intro at the top of the hour. But we did find Joe, and he is here with us. Hi, Joe.
Yeah, good Samaritan, right? Good Samaritan Joe,
That's
right?
you.
That's me, right? I was out there in Vegas, mayor of the city, and all of a sudden now I come back to the tri-state and I'm helping everybody. That's the way it works, Carver.
Well, I mean, Joe, when you've built yourself up to that kind of a figure, you got to live up to it. When you're the everyday guy, when you're the people's champion, when you're blue-collar Joe, and you have to be able to do all of those things. So I'm very proud of you, Joe. You did that, and I had to deal with the snow day with the two kids staying home from school. So that's kind of how it.
Look at
that's
you.
So they're both. They're both challenging. No, it's actually not. They're both challenging in their own way. What you had to do and what I had to do. All right, we will come back, Joe, and we'll start with some football. The Coast to Coast crowd has not gotten your thoughts from Sunday yet, and we start to look ahead to some things for next year. I got next year's odds for you. I've got some draft stuff for you today. I got some rumor stuff for you today. So we are going to dive right back into football. We got to keep Joe up. He's down that football's not back till August. We got to keep Joe going here. For El Coast to Coast on a Tuesday, we have a couple of hours to go. Joe will come back with me. We've got Coach and Davis as well in hour number 2. C to C, on a Tuesday. Sports Grid Radio. We're back right after this.